there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am Paul Caputo, sportslogos.net minor league baseball correspondent, broadcasting live, as always, from the Helmet Sunday Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. Today, we're going to be talking about the St. Paul Saints, one of the most storied franchises in minor league baseball. They were affiliated for a long time. Then the new franchise, which started in 1993, was independent and made huge headlines doing all sorts of wacky stuff with a pretty classic brand. So we're going to be talking about the AAA St. Paul Saints, affiliate of the Minnesota Twins. At the end of the podcast, stay tuned for one of my favorite surprise guests and a special lesson on philosophy and religion from an expert in the field. I'm super happy to be joined right now by the Executive Vice President and General Manager of the St. Paul Saints, Derek Sharrer. Derek, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me.
I'm doing well, Paul. How are you? I appreciate the invite.
Well, this is one of my favorite brands in minor league baseball, in part, obviously, because of, the whole identity that you built for yourselves over your years as an independent franchise. And now that you're a AAA franchise and an affiliate of the Minnesota Twins right across the river, I have to start by saying the Saints have been very generous with the folks of Curved Brim Media and with me for Baseball by Design. We had our Twin Cities twin billing that we did as a group where we put it out on Twitter that we were going to 2 games in one day. This was a bucket list item for me. We were going to 2 games in one day. We were going to a Twins game at 1:00. And then we had enough cars that we didn't have to do this, but we were going to take the green line from the Twins game to the Saints game and then see the Saints game at 7:00. And so that was an absolute pleasure. You happened to be there at the gate and you saw us wearing our t-shirts, and you had been noticing on Twitter that we had been, using this hashtag and you said, oh, you were the guys with the Twin Cities twin billing. And so we appreciated that you introduced yourself to us and welcomed us to the ballpark. That was a thrill for us. And the Saints were very welcoming to us that day when we showed up and saw that game.
Great. Well, I'm glad we were able to help, and it was great meeting you all in person. Certainly follow many of that group's work on social media, and more talk about minor league baseball, the more the better. So it was fun to see the planning leading up to that event, and then to actually run into y'all here at the ballpark.
And we had just an amazing time. I mean, it's a beautiful ballpark. It's a beautiful facility. We got a break with the weather. I mean, the weather, the forecast was calling for thunderstorms and sort of on and off all day. And it was like the skies just parted for us when we got there for both games. And we just had incredible weather the whole day. And both games were really exciting. And I think in both instances, the home team won by 1 run. So we got to see some good baseball. And even after 18 innings of baseball, I was like, maybe they'll score 1. Maybe the Red Wings will score 1 and we'll get a few extra innings here. So, but that wasn't to be. So we saw the home team win a couple of games. So anyhow, that was fun, but that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about minor league baseball, logos and nicknames, and what they mean to their local communities. The Saints have been around in various forms for many, many years, far preceding your time beginning with the team in the early 2000s. So can you talk about the history of the Saints nickname in St. Paul?
Sure. So the various iterations of the Saints franchise, that the original, we believe, started in 1884 and was commonly referred to as the St. Paul Apostles. Certainly the connection to the city name is key there, St. Paul. But yeah, they started, and back then the uniforms didn't often carry the team name. It more often than not had nothing on it at all, or only the community name of St. Paul. So, but they were referred to as the Apostles. That was 1884. I believe it was 1894 when Charles Comiskey actually brought a team from Sioux City, Iowa to St. Paul in what was called the Western League. And he began referring to his team as the St. Paul Saints. Again, no, we can't find any photos that actually show a logo or of any kind that says the Saints on it. But the team began being referred to as the Saints in the late 1890s. He then picked that team up, I believe, in 1900 and moved it to Chicago, and it became what's now known as the Chicago White Sox. But then a new team began shortly thereafter, which again was called the St. Paul Saints, and that name has stuck ever since. And as time progressed, you see various versions of the name and the logo and the interlocked STP or the block STP. But yeah, it's that late 1800s when baseball began here in St. Paul, and from the apostles to the saints, here we are still.
Sure. Well, and you have the very classic logo. The visual identity of the team is really classic, which is in juxtaposition to some of the really wacky stuff that you guys have done on the field, or even we'll talk about like the one block championship parade that you did, and some of the funny stuff that you've done. But the interlocking STP is sort of a classic baseball identity system, right? To put that on the cap for the cap logo, and then the sort of script saints across the chest. So a fairly conservative visual identity in some ways. I'm wearing the t-shirt right now that has the type as image creating the STP letter forms, creating the form of a pig. What is the significance of the pig to the St. Paul Saints identity?
Sure. The t-shirt you're wearing, actually, we refer to that logo as the pig's eye logo because it has the dot there for the pig's eye. St. Paul, prior to actually taking the name St. Paul, or being commonly known as St. Paul, was known as Pig's Eye Landing. And it was named for a explorer, trapper. I think he's known for some other things, but Pig's Eye Perrant was the gentleman who, along the Mississippi River, started this community, which again was known as Pig's Eye. So there is the Pig's Eye beer. Was historically a well-known beer here in the Twin Cities area. It's a brand that's long since disappeared, but the Pig's Eye brand is something that's very familiar to St. Paul, both historically and in various different products over the course of time here. But that was I think it was in 2016 or 2017 that we adopted that design as our Pig's Eye brand. Actually, we wore the hat. We have an alternate hat that we wear with that logo. We occasionally wear with alternate jerseys. But in 2017, we actually had a Pig's Eye jersey that we wore along with the hat, and that jersey stuck around for a couple of years.
So we talked about the significance of pigs to St. Paul, and obviously how you've incorporated the pigs into your branding. But I know that there's more of a significance to pigs and the St. Paul Saints as well. Can you elaborate a little bit on what else you guys do with pigs?
Yeah, no question. And the pig is more than just branding for us. It's a significant part of the experience. And the quick story I'll tell you is dating back to 1992 when Mike Veck and Marv Goldklang and Bill Murray first planted the flag here in St. Paul to begin this franchise. Mike and his wife Libby were going for a walk along the Mississippi River here in downtown St. Paul, and they came across a historical marker that talked about St. Paul being formerly known as Pig's Eye Landing, as we discussed. And at that moment, Mike knew that we needed a live mascot pig for every ball game. We needed a ball pig, so to speak. So he'd always been big on live animal mascots, and actually with one of his clubs in Miami, the Miami Miracle, which eventually became the Fort Myers Miracle, now the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles. But in Miami, or actually I think it was based in Pompano Beach at the time, he had a mascot golden retriever, one of the first. I think there are probably bat dogs and ball dogs all over minor league baseball nowadays, but Jericho the Miracle Dog was sort of the original back in the early 90s. So Mike knew that this place needed a mascot ball pig, and so the first ever contract signed by the St. Paul Saints was with a pig farmer from River Falls, Wisconsin. So since day one, 1993, we've worked with the Hout family, again, farmers from Wisconsin that make the 25-minute drive over to St. Paul every night for every home game night for the past 30 years to bring our mascot pig. The pig starts as a baby in the spring, and by the end of the summer, it's usually somewhere in the range of 250, 300 pounds. But one pig every year. Actually, I take that back. One pig every year, but for one, where because of the name, we had two pigs. We do a fan contest every year prior to the season to allow our fans to provide name possibilities for the mascot pig, and then small committee takes that list and narrows it down and selects a winner, and we have a lot of fun with the pig names every year.
Do you have some examples of some of the fun pig names that you've had over the years?
Sure. The fans are amazing with this, and usually it's something. Oftentimes it's something timely. I mentioned the one year where we had two. The reason we had two was because we had a couple named for the pig, and it was Kim Lardashian and Chris Hamfries. So we had those pigs for most of the year. We actually did a wedding for the pigs. The pigs were married for 72 days and then divorced before the end of the season, which mirrored Kim and Chris's summer of love.
Well, you know what they say, 50% of pig weddings end in divorce. So that's pure tragedy there.
There have been several. Kevin Bacon, one of the more traditional. Ham Solo was another good one. Garrison Squealer was a nice play on St. Paul history. Bud Squealig was another fan favorite.
Yeah. What is the pig's name this year?
This year's pig's name, not timely this year. Actually, there wasn't something that just hooked everybody's attention going on that made sense, but certainly a little bit of a throwback here for those of us 80s kids. 867530 Swine is the name of this year's pig.
Well, that's going to be stuck in my head all day now too. So thanks for that, Derek. Well, I love this detail. I think that's a really fun aspect of this story. And now, if we could just, you mentioned bat dogs, if you could actually train the pigs to go out there and, grab the bat and bring it back to the dugout, that would be really fun.
So you'd be amazed at how trainable the pigs are. I know I have been amazed. I know far more about pigs than anybody who's not involved with farming should. But the pigs do get trained. We put saddlebags on them, and then they get trained and take baseballs out to the umpires, and they'll have a bottle of Powerade or water in the saddlebag they can take out to the umpire, and they're actually pretty trainable.
Wow, this is spectacular. Thank you for sharing that. That is really fun.
You mentioned the juxtaposition between the Saints visual brand and certainly the brand of the franchise from a marketing and promotional perspective. It's really important to us to connect to the history of the Saints. This is a century, more than a century old franchise. Historically, our iteration of the Saints with this ownership group began in 1993. But we wanted to connect to the history of baseball in St. Paul when the franchise started in 1993. And another key element was this is the only franchise in the city of St. Paul that wears St. Paul across its chest, that has St. Paul in its name. You have the Minnesota Wild. You have various other teams. At one time, there was the Minnesota Swarm, a Major League Lacrosse team. So it was very important when Mike Veck, Marv Goldklang, and Bill Murray brought baseball back to the city of St. Paul to adopt the name St. Paul and then adopt the name St. Paul Saints to both celebrate the city of St. Paul, give St. Paul something of its own as somewhat of the smaller of the two twin cities, to really wrap our arms around this community.
Sure. And that's a big deal. That was something I was going to ask about, right? That, any of the other major teams that have played in St. Paul have gone by Minnesota, essentially. And you all are the only one to really embrace St. Paul as part of the nickname. That has become, I think, more important in the last couple of years, because after all of this history in St. Paul with the Saints, just last year, a year and a half ago, as part of the reorganization of minor league baseball, the Saints were essentially promoted out of the Independent American Association to all the way up to AAA as the AAA affiliate of the Twins. One of the things that you all did visually that I absolutely loved was that you took the Minnie and Paul Twins logo that has the shape of the state of Minnesota behind it, and then there's the baseball and the Twins script. You all took you took that logo and created a version of it where you had TC Bear, the Twins mascot. And then, of course, you had the St. Paul Saints pig mascot shaking hands, just like the old timey Minnie and Paul are shaking hands in that Twins logo. And then a slightly different color pattern. It has the lighter blue instead of the Twins darker blue. And then that in that logo, the pig is it has a little like a radio flyer wagon with all of the, like little reminders of some of the, various promotional nights that you all have had and whatnot. So it was a really sort of fun version of, fun takeoff on the fact that now you're a AAA team and you have this, sort of fun version of that logo. Is that logo still around? Or are you guys still, using that logo in various places?
Yeah, the primary focus of that logo was the inaugural season as a AAA affiliate, but it is something we still use occasionally, and that was designed very intentionally by a young man named Jordan Lynn that was here with the Saints at the time, and the concept behind that, I mean, the things you described were very intentional, right? We call that the Better Together logo, and it was such a huge transition. 28 years as an independent franchise in a major league market, two franchises, the Twins and the Saints, operating successfully all those years, virtually completely separately, with the occasional partnership on a community relations event or some sort of initiative that we work together on. 10 miles apart, living in different worlds, operating almost completely independently of each other. The fact that this transition had taken place, both parties had agreed to come together and partner. It was such a huge. This is a pretty special baseball market. Mm-hmm. What you guys did, having the opportunity to go to a major league game in the afternoon and a minor league game in the evening, again, 10.5 miles away. It's a pretty special baseball market, and Minnesota is quietly a hotbed of baseball, amateur, professional, collegiate, you name it. So this was a pretty special move that was being made, both by the Twins and the Saints entering into this partnership. So that logo, it obviously it mirrored the iconic Minnie and Paul logo, which is an amazing logo, designed years and years ago, but the two, bringing the two mascots together, TC Bear and then Madonna, MUD. Madonna is the name of our mascot pig. Obviously, sort of illustrating the partnership between the two organizations. But the red wagon was important because it emphasized who we are and what we plan to bring to the table. It also emphasized that the Twins were good with that. That as part of this transition, as part of this partnership, the Twins said from day one, we want the Saints and everything that the Saints are. We want to partner with the Saints as is. We're not looking to change who the Saints are and what they represent. And they were adamant to us that in partnership with the Saints, they wanted all of the fun and games. They wanted the Saints experience to remain the same. And we certainly were excited about the opportunity to have our fan base have an opportunity to watch the top prospects in all of minor league baseball, both for the Twins and our opponents coming here through CHS Field.
Sure. Well, okay. So you mentioned the fun and games. I think it's safe to say that before you became an affiliated franchise, that the Saints were one of the best known independent franchises out there. That's in part because of the cachet that the ownership group brings, right? Like having Bill Murray involved with the team, having him wear the cap during the Space Jam movie, right? Like, so there's a certain amount of cachet that Bill Murray and Mike Veeck bring to the team. But you certainly made a name for yourself with some of the fun things that you did, some of the fun promotions that you had. So I want to talk about just a couple of the noteworthy ones. I'm sure you can see these coming. The first one, my favorite, is the Atheist Night that you all have done, where you rebrand the St. Paul Saints as the Mr. Paul Aints. You rolled your eyes a little bit there when I brought up Atheist Night.
Only because you described it as your favorite. I can assure you it wasn't everybody's favorite.
Of course. Of course. Hopefully, folks have gotten over that. But can you tell me sort of what was the impetus for Atheist Night, and talk a little bit about how it was received?
Sure. I guess one thing I'd preface this entire part of the aspect of the conversation with is uh, we talk a lot internally about the difference between brand and branding.
Hmm.
And you mentioned the traditional look of the Saints and that sort of historic connection with the interlocking STP, the Saint script. We also wear a darker blue, navy blue block STP, and the color scheme actually connects somewhat to our longtime affiliation with the Dodgers, dating back to the Brooklyn Dodgers,
Hmm.
prior to that team leaving town as the Twins came in 1963, 61, early 1960s.
Okay.
The Saints left town, moved south as a AAA franchise, and then came back in 1993 in the independent version. So that to us is our branding, the look and the design. Our brand is who we are. It's our brand is consistently doing well the things that matter most, whether it's customer service, whether it's affordability, whether it's the experience as you walk through the ballpark, walk through those gates into CHS Field. Um, it's the fun and games we referred to. It's being a little bit edgy, a little bit mischievous. Um, Certainly, the St. Paul Saints name has a religious connotation to it, but by no means is it based on religion.
Hmm.
And that's somewhat where that promotion came from. It was sort of the marrying of timing and an idea. There was a large national atheist convention taking place in the Twin Cities in the summer of 2012, and representatives from the Minnesota Atheist Association came to visit with us, and they said they'd like to bring a large group out to the ballpark and enjoy a Saints game. And they kind of joked with about the irony of the Minnesota or the National Atheist Group attending a St. Paul Saints game, um, and just started kicking ideas around. And one of them mentioned how funny it would be to rename the Saints and remove Saint from everything, and call them the Mr. Paul Aints. So we had a little fun with the interaction. We had some fun with the brainstorming, and the more we thought about it, we thought this would be an interesting, if not entertaining, um, one-time event to see how it played. And it was all that and more from what we would have expected. So you sort of described the promotion, that the jerseys were changed to the Mr. Paul Aints instead of St. Paul. So again, the name in and of itself isn't derived religiously. It's derived from the city and the city name, and to remove Saint from it certainly made a. We weren't intending to make a statement, but it made a statement.
Sure.
And the response was the response was vociferous, I can assure you. And the interesting thing about the response was it was virtually 100%, never 100%, but virtually 100% positive locally,
Hmm.
because we had in 2012 we were 17 or 19 years into our history, and this iteration of the Saints history, and the market knows who we are and knows what the franchise is all about. They understood that that occasionally we're going to toe the line promotionally and take some risks. Nationally was where the both heavily positive and heavily negative feedback came. So there were various media groups around the country, which you can imagine and begin to highlight in your mind who those might be,
Sure.
that reacted pretty negatively and pretty loudly. But in in the ballpark, in the market, everybody had a lot of fun with it.
Sure. Well, I can certainly see that. And it just, I don't know, seems like if you're upset about that, you need to sort of get a sense of humor. It doesn't seem like that big a deal, but
Sure.
I guess it's predictable that there's going to be a reaction to anything, especially now.
Well, and
Maybe.
one thing I'd mention, Paul, and this was really important. We have two individuals who have been very involved with our organization for years. One is a gentleman named Charlie Rudd, who at one time was our all-time winningest pitcher, but he's also a Lutheran priest. And while he was pitching for us, he was going through the seminary to complete his degree before becoming a priest and actually having his own church. We also have, and I wish she would have been here when you guys were here for the game. We also, since 1993, have had Sister Rosalind Genefra, who is a massaging nun. She runs a school of massage and has been giving massages, raising money for her school and various causes at Saints games since 1993. In her early 90s now, so she's not doing it quite as much as she used to. But we did sit down with both Charlie and Sister Roz prior to that event and just asked what they thought and if they would be comfortable. And both understanding who the Saints are and understanding our position in the market, they both agreed that they would be supportive. So just an interesting side story to that event.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, and that does feel like the appropriate response to that promotion for sure. And I do wish that there had been a 90-something-year-old massaging nun there when we were there in June. That would have been that would have been great.
She's amazing.
Were the naysayers placated at all when you all did the St. Paul bobblehead?
Unfortunately, chronologically, the timing didn't work out that way.
Right, that was before.
Bobblehead came prior to, so yeah, we didn't have an opportunity to placate in that way.
Are there any more of those bobbleheads around? I've seen pictures of them, and they're hilarious. They're actual bobbleheads of St. Paul himself.
I believe we have some around the ballpark here. There aren't many remaining, at least with us. I'm sure there are collectors with them, but no, that was a great one. I want to say that was 2002 or 2001 when that one was given away.
Well, that is very funny. You probably saw this coming, though. Speaking of bobbleheads, you all did another promotion, which I'm sure garnered something of a reaction nationally, which was a bobble foot. And it was shortly after you're nodding. You look like you're resigned to this question. You knew it was coming. It was shortly after the scandal, the wide stance scandal with Senator Larry Craig in the Minneapolis airport. And you commemorated that scandal, which we won't go into too much detail on. People can Google it if they want. Sure. But there was a scandal involving a U.S. senator and a bathroom in an airport using his feet to try to contact other people in the same bathroom. And you all did a bobble foot that commemorated the bathroom stall and the feet in the wide stance. Obviously, that garnered a reaction nationally as well.
Yeah, that was fun. I think the most memorable aspect of that promotion for us is sort of how it came about. From a development standpoint, and this is more, I guess, behind the curtain than anybody really wants, but. At least from my perspective, the best ideas are the ideas that by the time you get to the actual day of the promotion, you almost don't remember who came up with the original idea. So many people play a role in the development of an idea that you almost forget who had the original. In this case, I do remember the brainstorming a preseason promotional meeting, and that incident had just happened. Apparently it was relatively common to tap your foot under a stall to try to meet somebody. And so in this promotional meeting, someone says, do we do anything with that? And everybody kind of, shakes their heads. I'm not really sure that there's a great way to go about doing something about that. And so we move on and sort of pass on the idea. Later in the meeting, one of the interns sitting in the meeting is flipping through the Chase Almanac, which is a gold mine for minor league baseball operators trying to come up with promotional ideas. It tells you what day it is on what special day it is, National Hot Dog Day, National Cupcake Day,
sure,
National Green Grass Day, whatever it might be, for every date. And someone's flipping through, one of the staff members is flipping through the Chase Almanac and says, May 25th is National Tap Dance Day. And from there, that everything just sort of took off. We sort of had our cover so to speak, and there was a layer there to put over the top of the bit and above the gag. So we named it National Tap Dance Day, and everything about the promotion in the ballpark and the experience as fans came through the gates after they got their bobblefoot was about tap dancing. It was dance companies, dance teachers. It was the music. It was videos of Fred Astaire. Everything was about National Tap Dance Day, but the giveaway was, as you said, the bobblefoot, which was a bathroom stall with a spring-loaded foot, and on the bathroom stall it had the Saints logo. It also had a graffiti that said "For a good time call," and then it had our ticket number, 644-6659.
Oh, call now for St. Paul Saints tickets.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had some fun with that, and hey, we're a minor league ball club in a major league market, and have been since 1993, and we've known since day one that there weren't going to be TV cameras covered every night from ABC, CBS, and NBC from the local news. They weren't going to have their sports guy out here getting highlight clips to then show highlights of our game on the 10 o'clock news. They're going to do that with the Twins.
Sure.
They're going to do that with the Vikings. They're going to the major sports coverage was going to come with the major league franchises and the Big Ten universities. So we knew since day one we were going to have to be something different if we were going to rise to the level of interest in a major league market like this. And Mike Beck would often say, if you have to light yourself on fire, you have to light yourself on fire, and
right.
to draw attention. And the idea was promotionally to always think big first. We figure if there's an idea that's going to garner some national attention, the local guys don't have much choice but to cover when the ESPN truck pulls up, or in the case of the two promotions you just mentioned, when the CNN truck pulls up. When they're here covering it, it's kind of hard for the local guys not to cover it. So
sure,
that's been the philosophy since day one.
Right. Well, I've already kept you longer than I meant to here, but I will rattle off a couple of the other promotions that you've done that had sort of national appeal that were fun. There were the Bud Selig ties after he announced that there could be ties in the All-Star game. After the whole Michael Vick controversy with the dog fighting, you did Michael Vick chew toys. And then there was a world record pillow fight in 2015. That sounds like that was a pretty amazing experience. The one I wanted to ask you about, though, is the one block championship parade. After the team won the American Association Championship, you won the league championship and held a one block parade. Why did you hold a one block parade?
Well, I'll give credit where credit's due here on that. And very quickly, I appreciate you mentioning the pillow fight, because it goes to show that they don't all have to be controversial and,
right.
and edgy. We hosted we painted 56,000 Twister dots on our outfield at one point as well, and played the world's largest game of Twister on the field post game. World's largest ballpark food fight, celebrating Animal House. So sometimes they can just be fun and big and entertaining. So, but occasionally we definitely like to toe the line and be a little bit edgy. But you mentioned the one block championship parade. We clinched the American Association Championship in Game 3 of the championship series, 3-game sweep on a Saturday night. On Sunday morning, everybody's sort of sleeping off the celebration. I'm actually sitting at a ball field watching my teenage son play in a traveling baseball game. It's 87 degrees. It's too hot for somebody who spent the night before celebrating, but sitting there kind of feeling the celebration just a little bit. And I look at my phone, and on Twitter, I see that we've just announced, and by we, I mean our radio broadcaster, Sean Aronson, who's been with us for 15 years now. Sean handles a lot of what we do on Twitter and is often the voice, again, behind the curtain. You're not going to air this anywhere, right? So nobody.
Right. No. Sean will never know. And so I can tell you completely off the record that Sean was super helpful with setting up our press credentials, and he was a joy to work with, but no one will ever hear that.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, nobody. This will never be. So anyway, I see on Twitter that and it's Sean's sense of humor, basically stating that we get who we are, we know where we fit in the food chain. We're the minor league team in the major league market. The big league guys get Canyon of Champions parades. Um, all we ask for is a block, and we're gonna do a one block parade tomorrow morning. So I immediately panicked and reached out to Sean and said, "Hey man, I don't know what you've done with this, but obviously we got to talk to some people if we're doing a parade. We've got to talk to the city. We've got to talk to the police. We've got to block streets." And he's like, "Relax, it's a joke. It's a tweet. I just
Right.
put it out there."
Right.
Well, the tweet got so much response. So many people having fun with it. So many people saying, "You have to do this."
Yeah.
We actually heard from the city saying, "Hey, are you guys planning on doing this? This will be a lot of fun." So the tweet sort of, it's one of those things that sort of got tweeted into reality. And we spent the next 12 to 18 hours putting it together. And, not that there was an awful lot to put together. We basically drove around the corner from our ballpark, that we blocked off the block of Broadway directly in front of our park. And I believe the parade was made up of players and staff riding on tractors and golf carts. And we did have a three-man band heading the parade up. I think a trumpet, a trombone, and maybe a snare drum or something along those lines. So it was a lot of fun. The most amazing thing about it was the turnout.
Yeah.
We we were sort of pushed to do it by the response to the tweet. Didn't anticipate anybody would actually come. We did it, I think, at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it was mid work day on a Monday. And we had upwards of 1,000 to 1,200 people just sort of jammed in this one block area. So it was pretty special, pretty magical. We're very fortunate to live and work in the community we do, and do what we do for the fans that we have an opportunity to play and work in front of. And man, they really showed up for us that day.
Well, that's a blast, and that's hilarious. So this is, I have another question for you that's a little bit of a departure from what we've been talking about. And it's not quite to do really with branding or brand, but it's something that I think is really fascinating at your ballpark. You have an exhibit on the history of baseball, and in particular, the history of baseball in St. Paul. Really well done, really well designed, interesting place to explore a little bit. One of the panels that I really enjoyed, or the display areas that I really enjoyed, was about Toni Stone, who was the first woman to play in a men's professional league. She played in the Negro Leagues back in the 40s and 50s, and her family relocated to St. Paul, and she was from there. And so she's obviously a big part of St. Paul baseball. I read her biography, and her sort of time in St. Paul growing up there was a big part of her story as a baseball player. So anyway, that exhibit is something that not every team does. It's a really cool thing for a fan to be able to see and experience. What was the thinking in creating that for your fans?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could tell by our appearance and the visual look of our organization that the history of baseball in St. Paul has been important to our ownership and our operation since day one. But there was a moment where it really hit home. Over the years, we had various opportunities to celebrate the history of the Saints, the history of baseball in St. Paul, beginning in 1993, all the way through moving into CHS Field in 2015. Any number of events that we put on celebrating that history. We're fortunate enough to have Wayne Terwilliger coach with us for several years. So there's living at that point in time, living history was spending every day of our season with our team in our ballpark. So great opportunities to celebrate the history of baseball in St. Paul. In 2015, when we moved to CHS Field, there was so much exposure for the franchise and for baseball in St. Paul that people started coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Hey, I heard you built a new ballpark. I was in my basement. I came across this team photo from the 1932 St. Paul Saints or My grandfather used to be a bat boy for the Saints at Lexington Park. And I mean, it had to have been 50, 60 people that sort of came out of the woodwork and said, hey, do you have someplace? Would you want this artifact? Do you have someplace you'd keep it? And after that happens so many times, you start thinking there may be some value to really investing in this and leaning into this. So it was really a passion play for Marv Goldklang, and the rest of our group. But Marv really drove this forward in that he felt that it was important to invest in this facility and provide a community asset in terms of a museum. And so we began digging into the history even more. We met with these folks that had artifacts. We met with an organization called Split Rock Studios, who designs museums based here in the Twin Cities. And things just started coming together. And where it really hit home was as we were studying the history and learning everything we could possibly absorbing as much information as we could. It really hit home when you start thinking about the city of St. Paul and the Saints history, but not only the Saints, just baseball history in St. Paul. We have 3 Hall of Famers and one who I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a Hall of Famer soon, who all grew up playing on the ball fields, the parks of the city of St. Paul, within just a mile of each other in Jack Morris, Dave Winfield, Paul Molitor, and then Joe Mauer. And you just look at those 4 guys and their on-field history and their importance to the game of baseball. The fact that they grew up within a mile of each other in the city of St. Paul, playing on the same ball fields for the same coaches in a lot of cases, which is crazy. Minnesota's commonly known as the state of hockey. And when you dig into the history of baseball in St. Paul, you can pretty comfortably say that St. Paul is the city of baseball. And that's when it really hit home that this is something worth investing in, having a free amenity to anyone who wants to visit. Obviously, if you buy a ticket to a ball game, you can walk through the exhibit, but you can also give us a call on a non-game day and say, hey, I'd like to come by and do a tour of the City of Baseball Museum. So it's something that we're really proud of, and that there's such a rich history. I think we talked a little bit already about that early 1884 beginnings of the St. Paul Saints history, but baseball history in St. Paul begins earlier than that, with a club called the St. Paul Redcaps, and then it just funnels all the way through the relationships with the Yankees. There's a great history of the Saints' relationship with the Yankees and Merle Huggins and Babe Ruth playing in old Lexington Park, on to a relationship with the Red Sox, the Brooklyn Dodgers, and then moving on to what we call the comeback kids when the Saints became an independent franchise in 93, and then on now to the future of baseball here in St. Paul as a AAA affiliate. So appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, I mean, it's such an important part, and it's a unique aspect of the ballpark experience there, right? Like not every team does that. And so it's very cool. And I actually, through my day job, was familiar with the work of Split Rock Studios, and I know that they do great work. So I was happy to bring that up because it's a cool thing, and I know it's something that we enjoyed when we were there at the ballpark as well.
Awesome, I love to hear it. You mentioned Tony Stone, and one other aspect of the history of baseball here in St. Paul that we were really excited to celebrate in the museum is the history of Black baseball.
Mm-hmm.
The exhibit about the exhibit with Tony Stone is very special history, and the fact that she learned the game. You mentioned she moved to St. Paul as a child, learned the game on the baseball field, going to games at Lexington Park, participating in camps as a girl in the mid 1900th century, and not something that girls did a lot back then, playing baseball. So awesome. And then Phil Daddy Reed and the St. Paul Colored Gophers were one of the great Black baseball teams that didn't exist late enough to play in the Negro Leagues. Mm-hmm. This ball club dominated the barnstorming in the upper Midwest, and was incredibly talented, but it had disappeared before the Negro Leagues came around. So yeah, just another opportunity to celebrate Black baseball history in St. Paul.
Well, such a cool town for baseball and such a cool franchise to talk about and so much, right? I mean, just so many different aspects of this story. So I really do appreciate you spending so much time with me today on this. Derek, the Saints are easy to find on all the social media. Where can people find you on social media?
I believe I'm not the most active on social media, but I'm following a lot of folks at least. But I think I'm at Derek Sharrer,
Okay.
DEREKSHARRER on Twitter.
Awesome. Derek, thank you so much. This has been a blast, and go Saints. We had a great time and appreciate everything that you did for us, and really appreciate you joining me now for the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Paul. It was so great to meet you guys, and glad you had a good time here. One last thing I'd want to emphasize: I really appreciate you being here and sort of highlighting the experience of coming to a Saints game. One thing I'd want to emphasize with that is what we do as a staff is maybe half of that. The majority of that experience, as you saw, is the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do for them, and certainly they're a huge part of what we do. They're a big part of the show here, and they buy in, they participate, they get who we are and what we do, and they give us a really long leash, which we appreciate.
Well, you could totally feel that at the ballpark. It was really the atmosphere was electric and really fun. So definitely one of my favorite minor league baseball experiences, and appreciate all that you did for us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Derek. All right, everyone, welcome back. Given that we're talking about the St. Paul Saints, I thought I would bring in the author of more than 20 books on philosophy and religion, more than 250 academic articles on those subjects, the professor emeritus of religion from Syracuse University, professor emeritus of philosophy from Villanova University, my dad, Dr. John D. Caputo. Dad, thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure, Paul.
It's obviously this subject is right up your alley. So I just want to jump right in and ask you, who was St. Paul, and what kind of ball player was he?
St. Paul was all over the globe. He was a man that covered all the bases.
It's pretty good, Dad. We're off to a great start.
St. Paul. When you first told me about this, I thought, well, St. Paul, Minnesota. What that means is the people, the immigrants who settled the central part of the country were a lot of Germans. So there were German Protestants, and Luther was a German. So I thought, well, this is a city named after the patron saint of German Protestants. But I actually looked this up. This was named by a French Catholic priest who was a missionary. And that's another hat that St. Paul wore. St. Paul was the guy who carried the ball that's a football metaphor, though, for the church in the New World, which was Greece and Rome, the Roman Empire. So he was the patron saint of all missions, and so he would go to remote places where the word had not been heard, and he would preach the word. So if you've got a minor league team that is invoking the name of St. Paul, that's clearly a reflection of Paul the missionary, carrying the word of baseball to the provinces, to the remote regions, to the minor leagues, to get the word out there about the saving word of baseball. That would be my hypothesis.
So he's out there spreading the word for the church in remote communities. So he's kind of building grassroots community support for the church in the same way that minor league baseball is creating grassroots community support for baseball.
St. Paul was a rabble rouser. He would go into these towns and preach the word that they hadn't heard before, and he got himself in quite a lot of trouble. Usually ended up getting kicked out of town. So if you make him the patron saint of minor league baseball, then minor league baseball is going to have to fight for the truth of baseball in this remote region. That would be kind of an extension of St. Paul.
But as a ball player, it sounds like he may have been a clubhouse cancer who isn't necessarily a team player who's going to get along with his teammates.
Yeah, he was difficult. He established these communities that were tight, but the communities were outsiders, and they were he would go into Jewish communities and say, look, Judaism has been fulfilled. Here's the word. Now the Messiah has arrived. And traditional Jews didn't want to hear that. And so he was always getting himself into trouble with the local Jewish community. Eventually he would get kicked out of town.
So, a lot of times sports teams like to have mascots that are intimidating or menacing in some way. What do you think of Saints as if you're an opposing ball player and you come in and this team is named the Saints, what is it you're afraid of?
They've got divine assistance. Their fastballs will be supernaturally empowered. They'll be their manager will have divine guidance. These people, you won't be able to touch these people. If they're the Saints, they've got the power on their side. They've got divinity. They've got omniscience and omnipotence. Your OPS would be out of sight. You have omnipotence and omniscience on your side. You can't lose.
That's one of these new metrics I think that they're keeping track of in sports these days. That's sabermetrics just ruining the game right there, I think.
Yeah.
Omniscience. What'd you say? Omniscience?
And omnipotence.
And omnipotence.
See, God knows everything and God can do anything, right? That would be terrific if you had that on a baseball team.
Seems like the Saints should be the AAA team for the Anaheim Angels rather than the Minnesota Twins.
Well, if I had a choice, I would rather have St. Paul than an Angel, because St. Paul was the man. He was the carrier of the word and of Jesus, and Jesus is higher than the angels. So all things being equal, somebody who's got St. Paul on their side will be able to beat an angel.
Okay,
Angels would be tough to beat, but if you had St. Paul on your side, you could beat an angel.
This team is named they're named the Saints. Are there other Saints who you think would be really good ball players? Like, could you field an all-star team of Saints to be a baseball team?
That would be quite a team. All the all celestial team. And any saint is capable of saints get to be saints because they can perform miracles. So if you got 9 guys who can perform miracles,
it's a pretty good ball team.
That's a good team.
Yeah. All right.
You wouldn't even need a bench. You wouldn't need a reliever. You wouldn't need. If you got 9 guys, they're not going to get hurt. Right?
No, a lot of perfect games.
Perfect games. Perfect games. That's right. A saint is someone who not only meets the norms but goes beyond the norms. Right? This exceptional, beyond your run of the day good person. A saint is not a run of the day good person. A saint is someone who goes to excess, who has excessive holiness. So excessive power, excessive knowledge. You'll never be able to beat a team of saints.
Okay, here's a twist on a philosophical classic. Could God pitch a fastball so fast that he himself could not hit it?
That's called that is a debate between intellectualism and voluntarism. That is, do you think God's knowledge is more powerful than his will, or God's will is more powerful than his knowledge? And I think that's a phony problem. I think that when you say something, what you just said, if you try to parse it philosophically, it would not actually make any sense. It would be like saying, can God make a square circle? When you say square circle, the only thing that's going on there is your lips are moving. That problem was first raised way back in the 11th century by a theologian who said, could God make it to be that Rome was not founded, even though Rome was founded? So the question was, could God change past time? And what he wanted to know was, could God make a sinner innocent of sin? Right? But the question was, it's a very interesting question. Could God change past time? Now think of what you could do with that if you were a baseball manager, and you could just rewind the game, stop the game at the point of that crucial error or the crucial strikeout, rewind it. You'd never be able to beat that team.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, baseball was a pretty different game in the 11th century.
Yeah, they didn't have instant replay.
Well, so this has been as interesting and weird as many of the conversations we had at the kitchen table growing up with dinner. So thanks for doing this. Where can people follow you, Dad, on social media? What's your Twitter handle?
I haven't gotten there yet.
All right, we're gonna set
You're
up
gonna
a
have
Twitter
to set that up for me.
All right, thank you, Dad.
Been a pleasure.